Okay. Today's topic is listening, why it's important and how to do it better. And today's guest speaker is Violette De Ayala. She is an author and an inspirational speaker, and she is most well known for being the founder and CEO of FemCity. So thank you so much, Violet, for being generous with your time.
Thank
And
you so much
sharing,
for inviting me. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm excited to be here.
sharing your pearls of wisdom with us. So I'll just get started and start asking you questions. So to begin, how has mindfulness and meditation affected your own ability to listen?
Really, I started meditating and being more mindful a couple of years ago. I was suffering from a lot of health issues. So I
Okay.
was suffering from high blood pressure, the standard one, high blood pressure, cholesterol, feeling a lot of levels of anxiety throughout the day, palpitations, and prediabetes. I mean, that was a really strong one. That came from nowhere. And, here I am, I do Pilates every day, I run, I spin. And so it was a shock to me. And my doctor sat me down and was like, you need to make changes. You need to make changes. And at the time I was, I had another firm that I was running. I was a senior advisor to a mayor at the city of Miami mayor here in South Florida. Started FemCity on the side, had the 3 kids in 3 different schools. So life had definitely pulled me in various directions. And so the idea and the concept of meditation and mindfulness was not part of who I was. I'm super innately and DNA wise a type A. I love that feeling of being so busy and having every minute accounted for. And the concept of like just sitting there being still was just not appealing to me. Just felt like there was a waste of time. As a matter of fact, when I started practicing it, I would finish and I would say to myself, well, that was a waste. Like that was 10 minutes of my time that I could have been making money, or I could have been growing, a business, or I could have been helping someone. And it really was a journey into accepting what that really meant for me and how to implement it in my life so that I could make those changes, because my body was crying out. And I think so many of us go through that, where it's just, small little illnesses or getting sick all the time and not listening to our body because we're pushing, and we're in a society that's constantly telling us that we should push and we could do all these things. And why rest? If you rest, it means you're not serious about being an entrepreneur or launching multiple businesses. So for me, it really was something that was forced on because I needed to make changes. And it took me a couple of months to actually just be still for just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, they always say when you start, just to start with little baby steps. And that is a lesson in listening, right? Listening to someone who's an expert, listening to someone who's telling me something that's in my benefit, and then also implementing those moments of just resting and being still and trying to figure out what that even means and how that will actually become part of my everyday, right? Because I was in my 40s, in my early 40s. So how do you continue doing that when you're so completely bored? I would get bored, start meditating. I'm like, this is it, 2 minutes, I can't do anymore. I'm bored out of my mind. I can't sit here and just be still and think, these intentional thoughts, or practicing just being still and gratitude and all that other stuff that came with it.
So how long have you been doing it?
About 10 years. It was right before I turned 40. I'll be 49 next year. So it's been a really long time. And I would say it probably took me about a year and a half to just find joy in it. The first couple of times I felt, well, it was pushed, it was pressured, right? So I wasn't like, I didn't really want to be there, even though I wanted to be there. I wasn't like, I was clock out as if it were a client, like being there. And it wasn't until I started seeing the results where I started having better results with my blood work. I started seeing differences in the joy that I brought, to those around me. I wasn't so stressed out all the time. Saying no to things that no longer aligned. I mean, I was sitting on 6 different boards, chairing multiple committees, committing myself to raising millions of dollars to these nonprofits. And, having the clarity to say, I can't continue on this path. I need to start saying no to some of these things that I really did love, but I couldn't, it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't a sustainable life, even though, I loved when people would say, well, Violet, I don't know how you do it. How do you do it all? Multiple businesses, all these kids, sitting on these boards, working for the mayor's office. there was a lot of glamour when people would say that, but the truth is I was dying on the inside, right?
Okay. And so how about your ability to lead? How do you think it
Yeah.
has affected your ability to lead?
So there's definitely more clarity. I think I made um, bigger decisions in a faster way. I feel that having this as a part of my life also helps me to have clarity in the journey and also in the steps that it takes to get there. I think before I had this, I was flying so fast that I didn't really have the chance to process things out, to think about consequences or think about the risks, and also like the steps. You're kind of just like piecing things together because you're not really as intentional. But once I started implementing that, I definitely became a better leader. I mean, we launched FemCity into more chapters as an example. I developed more revenue streams. I became more balanced in all aspects of my life. I think I became also a stronger leader for people to hang around with. I was able to maintain a level of calmness and not brevity, but just a confidence in the decisions that I was making. And that has continued to stay with me. I mean, I think that the reason why I'm able to make fast decisions and changes is because I have that meditational part, that listening part embedded already into my every morning routine and every evening routine. And now there's so many articles, and CEOs are now sharing more about the importance of meditation and how it helps to generate more revenue because you're making more clear decisions.
Right. So can you share a couple of examples of how mindful listening has specifically helped your business to grow? You talked about mental clarity, um, a sense of calmness. Are there any other examples you can share?
Sure. So I think, the important part about listening is that people sometimes will say, well, Violet, you're so brilliant for starting FemCity. And it's a beautiful compliment. The truth is that my success has come from listening. And so there's an initial part of listening. So you listen to your demographic, you listen to the people that you're serving, whether you're in a corporate environment or you're in a nonprofit sector or you're starting your own business. The listening part is something that I think people kind of speed by. And the truth is that when you listen without thinking of your response, like truly listen and listening to the specific words and the emotions and the reasons and asking more questions to get more information, to get more clarity, then you're more concise with the direction you need to go in. So listening at the beginning, but then also listening after you implement. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs that listen at the beginning, right? Maybe they have a more structured focus group where they're, okay, we're going to go ahead and really kind of create this ability to obtain data and see what they're thinking and how they're thinking. So that's great. But the second part of that is that once you implement it, is to sit back and then also ask those questions again. How am I doing? Could we do better? Are there ways that we can do this better? So it's a consistent mode of listening. It's not just through at the beginning, just like you would have in any relationship, right? You're asking questions to your coworker or your colleague, and then the dialogue goes back and forth, and it continues to go back and forth. Where a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel, miss the boat a little bit, where they ask the questions initially, create a business and a brand, get it up and running, and then they get to a level where they can't grow anymore because they've no longer listened to aspects that are perhaps needed or requested in their own evolution, right? Every brand goes through an evolution. And I think that listening part really can be a critical part in success when it comes to business. And you can see that in some of these big brands. You see like Sears or J.C. Penney, some of the older brands, that they stopped listening, right? The market's changed, people's needs changed. Even Barney's, I mean, I love Barney's, but Barney's, they've said they had a really hard time pivoting into the e-commerce world and really embracing the changes. And so they didn't grow, they weren't able to sustain, where a lot of the other similar brands were able to do that because they listened to see where the market was going, what the trends were saying, what people were telling them, clients were telling them, customers were telling them, and then the ability to continue listening.
Right. So I hear a few key points there. One is that there needs to be an open communication loop, right? So a constant flow of receiving information. So that's one piece. And another piece is from various stakeholders in your business life cycle, in your experience. So you have your clients, your customers, then you may have your coworkers, you could have a boss. There are just a number of people that you need to listen to. And then the third piece, and this sounds like a harsh statement to make, but adapt or die. Like in terms of business in particular, you really need to have that open loop of communication with various stakeholders in order to be flexible and open and adapt so that you can continue to thrive.
Absolutely.
Right?
And if I think of our own history with FemCity, in 2009, we had Google reach out to us. They at the time had Google ambassadors, and they were people that were out in the local communities trying to get people to utilize Google Circles, Google Hangouts, and then posting their businesses on Google, right? And they reached out to us and said, hey, we want to teach your members how to use Google. It's a new product. And so they started doing it for us in Miami, and then they started doing it for us in our Seattle chapter in Philadelphia, and so throughout. And the truth is that it was a beautiful, obviously it's great when Google calls you and says, we want to partner up. But beyond that is that I listened after, and our members said, we really love this. We really need this. We didn't know this even existed. This really helps our businesses. Yelp came through after and did the same thing. Yelp was like, hey, we'd love to teach your members how to put their businesses on Yelp. What do you do when you have a bad review? And so again, listened, moved forward. And then after, our members kept on sharing how much they loved it, how much they needed that. And so we then shifted and edited our programming curriculum with online classes. And so that came, so now again, people are like, oh my gosh, it's so great. It's perfect for the pandemic, this and that. But the truth is that it was all about listening, right? I could have easily not listened. I could have easily just had people say, well, that was really great. And then I would, yeah, that's great. Let's go back to what we were doing. But the listening aspect of that really helped to make it so that we could launch in more markets, right? We could then go ahead and launch more programming as well. And we continue to listen to people. So it just doesn't end. I think that when you see a lot of these brands that just close shop, I wonder at what point did they stop listening?
Right. Yeah. Listening, processing, integrating the good, relevant information into future actions. Right. That's awesome. Okay. And if you were to leave one practice for mindful listening, what would that be?
I would say, as people speak to you, regardless of the platform or the scenario or your surroundings, I would really encourage you to challenge yourself not to think of a response while they're sharing. So as someone's sharing, I think humans innately create a response as soon as they hear something that resonates with them, that makes them want to contribute to that conversation. But once we've already created that response while the other person's still chatting, we're no longer listening. And that's the biggest thing to work on, is that if you can just listen and be present in that moment. And once that person has done sharing their side or their perspective or their review, that you then take it in. You can even say, give me a couple minutes to just process that. You can give yourself that time. You don't have to rush. You can just say, you know what, everything you shared was really valuable. Let me just sit for a moment and make sure I understand what you're saying. And you could even then, I heard you say this. Is that correct? Because sometimes there's like misinformation. That is one of the most beautiful things that we can do, that will make the other person feel very valuable, by the way. Will make them feel like you really honor that moment and that you're really listening, versus when someone's talking and you're already kind of biting at the bit because you already know what you're going to say. That is huge. And if you can take that into boardrooms, if you can take that into any kind of meeting when you're forming collaborations or partnerships, or you're launching new businesses and you need more investors, having that ability to just really be present and listen helps you to get it right, and helps it so that things go more smoothly and you become more successful.
I think I have a new tagline: listening helps you get it right.
There you go. Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
it. Love
absolutely.
it. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that this is a great topic. I'm so glad that you're doing this topic. I think it's more humans could use listening and being more mindful and being more present and intentional with their everyday actions. And the truth is, when you make others feel appreciated and you make them feel that you truly are listening, they will love you and refer you to more people and want to do more business with you. Humans do business with humans they love and respect. And so that's a
Mhm.
great way to also uh, start creating that in your life.
Right, I agreed. So if people want to learn more about you and FemCity, where do they go? How do they learn more about you and your company?
Sure. You can go to femcity.com, and then you can find us on every social media platform at FemCity, or myself personally, it's my first and last name all together.
And you're on LinkedIn too, right?
LinkedIn, I'm on everything, and everything has FemCity or Violette De Ayala.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Violet.
Thank you so
Be
much for having me.
well.